Hi, in this talk, I will present our work on identifying potential conflict spots among stakeholders in coastal and marine ecosystem surface use and management. Environmental policy making and practice increasingly embrace the ecosystem services approach. However, most of the time, ecosystem services studies or management often ignore the sociocultural context in which they are being produced and used. This leads to blind spots of some services, as well as bias towards others, which overall ignores the diversity in ecosystem services benefits for different stakeholders and their varying needs. Identification of potential conflict spots amongst these stakeholders in regards to ecosystem services and the ecosystem that provide them are thus important, particularly in designing policies, communication strategies, or measures aimed to enhance public education. So between 2020 to 2021, we performed focus group sessions involving 31 people representing stakeholders concerned with the use and management of coastal and ecosystem services. These stakeholders were selected to represent the three different levels of policymaking and implementation in Indonesia, consisting of community, regional, and national levels. The main activity of these sessions was the participatory ecosystem service assessment using multi-criteria matrices in which the participants were asked to rate and discuss the importance of particular coastal and marine ecosystems, such as seagrass, mangroves, and coral reefs, in providing particular services and the benefits these services provide in terms of, for instance, economy, health, and well-being. Several common main themes emerged from the matrices and discussions. The first one, at community level, ecosystem services were mostly interpreted as the capacity of ecosystems to provide them with food, with other provisioning and regulating services perceived or scored less important, or seen as something they were not aware of. These were in contrast to the national and regional level stakeholders. The second one, a particular type of ecosystem, the mangroves, were perceived to be not important by local community participants. This was mainly due to the mangrove ecosystems, not something that are commonly found in the area where participants live. However, at regional and national levels, they perceive that programs to plant mangroves in the areas are important, especially to solve the coastal aggression problem there. Such findings are very useful for policymakers. For instance, we found that communication efforts about importance of mangrove forest for coastal areas are very important to ensure sufficient support from local communities for programs aimed to protect the areas using mangroves. In common with other studies, the concept of regulating ecosystem services such as climate regulation and flood control is something that is often perceived to be abstract and remote by local communities. Ecosystem services are mostly perceived as something related to food. For policymaking, particularly those concerned with conserving coastal ecosystem, which often take the form of restricting or reducing access and use, sufficient care must be provided to ensure that the effort does not antagonize local communities. This can be done, for instance, through public communication and education, payment for ecosystem services scheme, and participatory process in designing marine protected areas. Identifying potential conflict spots such as these is very important to ensure that any policies or initiatives produce the intended impacts sustainably. Thank you. My name is Radisti, and this study was performed by teams from Indonesia, myself, Carya, Wulandari, Fauzan, and from Malaysia, VC, and from Philippines, Janine.